Hello, my friends. Welcome back. I hope you are having a peaceful and wonderful day. Today, I want to tell you the story of a man who changed the world with his imagination. He was not a king. He was not a president. He was not a famous scientist. He was a storyteller, a dreamer, a creator. His ideas brought happiness to millions of people. His characters became famous all around the world. Even today, children and adults know his name. His name was Walt Disney. When people hear the name Disney, they often think about Mickey Mouse. They think about cartoons. They think about magical castles. They think about Disneyland. But very few people know how difficult Walt Disney's life really was. The road to success was long. It was filled with problems. It was filled with failures. There were moments when he had almost no money. There were moments when people laughed at his ideas. There were moments when he lost everything he had built. Yet somehow, he always found a way to continue. He always found a reason to believe, and perhaps that is why his story is still inspiring today. Because Walt Disney showed us that dreams are powerful. But dreams alone are not enough. Dreams need courage. Dreams need patience. Dreams need hard work. How did a poor boy become one of the most successful creators in history? Let's begin our journey. Walter Elias Disney was born on December 5, 1901, in Chicago, Illinois. At that time, America looked very different from today. There were no computers. There was no internet. Movies were still new. Television did not exist. Life moved much more slowly. Walt was one of 5 children in his family. His father was named Elias Disney. His mother was named Flora Disney. The family was not rich. In fact, they often struggled financially. When Walt was still a young boy, his family moved to a farm in Missouri. This move would become very important. Years later, Walt would say that some of his happiest childhood memories came from that farm. Life on the farm was simple. There were animals everywhere. Horses, chickens, birds. Walt loved watching them. He spent hours observing their movements. He watched how they walked. He watched how they played. He watched their different personalities. Without realizing it, he was collecting ideas that would later appear in his cartoons. Even as a child, Walt loved drawing. He drew animals again and again. He filled pieces of paper with sketches. His family noticed his talent. Neighbors noticed it too. Sometimes people paid him a few cents to draw pictures. These small moments made Walt very happy. They helped him believe that art could become an important part of his life. But life was not always easy. Walt's father was a strict man. He believed in hard work. When the family later moved to Kansas City, Walt and his brother Roy helped deliver newspapers. Their day often started before sunrise. Sometimes they woke up at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Imagine being a young boy and working while most children were still asleep. The work was exhausting. The weather was sometimes cold. Sometimes it rained. Sometimes snow covered the streets. Yet Walt continued. Years later, he would remember these difficult mornings. They taught him discipline. They taught him responsibility. Most importantly, they taught him that success requires effort. Even while working, Walt never stopped drawing. Whenever he had free time, he sketched characters and scenes. His imagination seemed endless. Teachers noticed that he loved art more than other subjects. He often spent his spare moments drawing instead of doing other activities. As he grew older, his interest in art became stronger. He began taking art classes. He studied cartoons. He studied illustration. He practiced constantly. Many young people dream about success. Walt was different. He was willing to work for his dream. Every drawing was a lesson. Every mistake was an opportunity to improve. Slowly, his skills became better. Slowly, his confidence grew. But the biggest challenges were still ahead. At the age of 16, the world was changing. A terrible war was taking place in Europe. This war became known as World War I. Walt wanted to help. He wanted to serve his country. But he was too young to join the military. So he found another way. He joined the Red Cross. Soon he traveled to France. There he drove ambulances after the war ended. Many young people would have been frightened by such an experience. Yet Walt remained curious about the world around him. Even in France, he continued drawing. He covered notebooks with sketches. He decorated vehicles with cartoons. Wherever he went, creativity followed him. He could not stop creating. It was simply part of who he was. When Walt finally returned to America, he faced an important question. What should he do with his life? Many people chose safe careers. Many people looked for stable jobs. Walt chose a different path. He decided to follow his passion. He decided to become an artist. It was a risky decision. Nobody could promise success. Nobody could guarantee money. But Walt believed that his future was connected to drawing and storytelling. He just did not know yet how extraordinary that future would become. At first, things seemed promising. Walt found work at an art studio in Kansas City, where he created advertisements and illustrations. He enjoyed the work, but something else soon caught his attention: animation. At that time, animation was very new. Most cartoons were short and simple, and few people believed they had a bright future. But Walt saw something different. He saw possibilities. He saw stories that could come alive. He became fascinated by the idea of moving drawings. How could a drawing walk? How could a drawing smile? How could a drawing make people laugh? These questions filled his mind. Soon, Walt started experimenting with animation. He spent countless hours learning. He made mistakes, started again, watched what worked, and studied what failed. Little by little, he improved. Eventually, Walt decided to start his own company. It was a bold decision. He was still very young, had little money, and had little experience running a business. But he believed in himself. His company was called Laugh-O Graham Studios. At first, everything seemed exciting. The company created short animated films, and people liked them. Walt and his team worked day and night. They dreamed about success and about building something special. But dreams alone could not pay the bills. The company struggled financially. Money became a constant problem. Some clients paid late, and some never paid at all. Expenses continued growing, and soon the situation became serious. Walt tried everything he could. He worked longer hours, searched for investors, and looked for new opportunities. But it was not enough. Finally, the company went bankrupt. Everything collapsed. Walt had lost his business, lost most of his money, and failed. For many people, this would have been the end. Imagine being young. Imagine giving everything to a dream and then watching it disappear. Many people would have given up. Many people would have accepted defeat. But Walt Disney was not like most people. Instead of quitting, he made another bold decision. He would move to Hollywood. Today, Hollywood is famous for movies and entertainment, but at that time it was still growing. Walt believed it offered new opportunities. He packed his belongings, bought a train ticket, and headed west. According to some stories, Walt arrived in Hollywood with only a small amount of money in his pocket. But he carried something more valuable than money. He carried hope. He carried ambition. And most importantly, he carried ideas. In Hollywood, Walt joined forces with his older brother Roy. Roy believed in Walt's talent, and the brothers made a strong team. Roy managed business matters while Walt focused on creativity. Together, they started a new animation studio. The early years were difficult. The company was small, resources were limited, and every dollar mattered. Every project mattered as well. The brothers worked tirelessly, and slowly things began improving. One of their first successful characters was Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. Oswald became popular with audiences, and people enjoyed his adventures. For the first time, Walt felt that success might finally be within reach. The future looked bright. But then disaster struck again. A business disagreement changed everything. Walt learned that he did not actually own the rights to Oswald. The character belonged to someone else. Even worse, many of Walt's employees left him. Suddenly, he found himself in a terrible situation. He had lost his most successful character, lost much of his team, and lost a major source of income. It felt like starting over once again. Walt was heartbroken. He had worked so hard, yet once again success slipped away. But sometimes life's greatest disappointments lead to its greatest opportunities. During a train ride back to California, Walt began thinking, what should he do now? What new character could he create? As he sat on the train, ideas filled his mind. Slowly, a small mouse appeared in his imagination. The mouse was friendly, optimistic, and brave. The mouse always found a way to smile. That mouse would become Mickey Mouse. At first, Mickey was just an idea, a simple sketch, a few lines on paper, and nothing more. But Walt believed in the character. He saw something special in Mickey. Soon, the studio began creating Mickey Mouse cartoons. The work was not easy. Animation required enormous effort. Every movement had to be drawn by hand. Every scene took time. Every second of film required careful attention. The team worked hard because they believed in the project. Then, in 1928, something remarkable happened. A cartoon called Steamboat Willie was released. This was not just another cartoon. It was one of the first cartoons with synchronized sound. The music matched the action, and the sound effects matched the movement. Audiences were amazed. People had never seen anything quite like it before. The reaction was immediate. People laughed. People smiled. People talked about Mickey Mouse everywhere. Suddenly, Walt Disney was no longer an unknown artist. He was becoming a star in the world of animation. For the first time, it seemed that all the struggles had been worth it. The boy who loved drawing animals on a farm was finally seeing his dream become reality. But Walt was not satisfied. Success only made him dream bigger. Most people would have been happy with Mickey Mouse. Most people would have enjoyed their success. Walt wanted more. He always wanted more. Not more money and not more fame, but more creativity, more imagination, and more possibilities. And soon, he would take the biggest risk of his entire career. And soon, he would take the biggest risk of his entire career. At that time, cartoons were usually very short. and most lasted only a few minutes. People watched them before the main movie began, and no one believed audiences would sit through a full-length animated film. The idea sounded ridiculous. Many experts laughed. Many investors doubted him, and even some people inside his own company were worried. They thought Walt was making a terrible mistake. Creating a full-length animated movie would cost a huge amount of money and take years to complete. If the movie failed, the company could collapse. Walt knew the risks, but he also knew something else. He believed people wanted great stories. He believed animation could be more than simple entertainment. He believed cartoons could make people laugh, cry, and feel deep emotions. So he moved forward. The project was called The Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Today, the title sounds familiar, but at that time, nobody knew if it would work. The production was difficult. Artists worked long hours, animators drew thousands of images, and money became a constant concern. As costs increased, people started calling the project Disney's folly. The word folly means a foolish idea, and many people believed Walt was throwing away his future. Yet Walt remained confident. He visited the artists every day, encouraged them, and shared his vision. He wanted every scene to feel magical. He wanted audiences to forget they were watching drawings and believe the characters were alive. After years of work, the film was finally completed. The premiere took place in December 1937. The audience filled the theater, and many people arrived expecting failure. Instead, they witnessed history. People laughed, people cried, and people applauded. When the movie ended, the audience stood up and cheered. A Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs became a huge success. It earned millions of dollars and, more importantly, changed animation forever. Walt Disney had proven that animated movies could be true works of art. The success transformed his company, and new opportunities appeared everywhere. Soon, Disney Studios began producing more films, including Pinocchio, Fantasia, Dumbo, and Bambi. Each movie introduced unforgettable characters and stories. Families around the world fell in love with Disney films. Children grew up watching them, and parents shared them with their families. Walt's dream continued growing. Yet success brought new challenges. The world entered World War II, and the war affected many businesses. Disney Studios was no exception. Some projects struggled financially, resources became limited, and the future felt uncertain once again. But Walt had faced uncertainty before. He continued looking ahead and searching for new ideas. One day, another dream began forming in his mind. This dream was different. It was not a movie or a cartoon. It was a place where families could spend time together, a place filled with imagination, and a place where stories could become real. At that time, amusement parks often had a bad reputation. Many were dirty and poorly maintained. Walt thought families deserved something better. He imagined a beautiful park with clean streets, friendly employees, exciting attractions, and a place where children and adults could have fun together. Many people thought the idea was impossible, just as they had laughed at Snow White and doubted Mickey Mouse. But Walt refused to listen. He believed in the dream. Construction began in California. The project required enormous effort. It required money, planning, and courage. Finally, on July 17, 1955, Disneyland opened. Thousands of visitors arrived. The opening day was not perfect. Some rides had problems, the weather was hot, and some areas were unfinished. Reporters criticized the event, and many people focused on the mistakes. Walt, however, focused on the future. He knew improvement would take time, and he was right. Within a short period, Disneyland became incredibly popular. Visitors came from all over the country and then from around the world. People entered the park and felt something special. For a few hours, they could escape everyday life and enter a world of imagination, adventure, and dreams. Walt loved walking through Disneyland. He enjoyed watching families smile and seeing children experience wonder. To him, happiness was the most important achievement. As the years passed, Disney's success continued. New television programs appeared, new movies were created, and new projects were developed. But Walt was already thinking about something even bigger. He wanted to build another park, one that would be larger, more ambitious, and more innovative. This project would eventually become Walt Disney World in Florida. Unfortunately, Walt would never see its completion. In the mid-1960s, his health began to decline. Even then, he continued working, planning, and dreaming about the future. His imagination never stopped. On December 15, 1966, Walt Disney passed away. He was 65 years old. The news shocked millions of people. Around the world, families mourned, artists mourned, and employees mourned. Many people felt they had lost someone special. But Walt's story did not end that day. His ideas lived on. His company continued growing, his films continued inspiring audiences, and his parks continued welcoming visitors. Generation after generation discovered the characters he helped create, including Mickey Mouse, Donald Duck, Goofy, and many more. Today, Disney is one of the most recognized names in the world. Its stories have been translated into many languages, and its movies have reached nearly every corner of the planet. Millions of people have visited Disney parks, and millions more have grown up watching Disney films. All of this began with a young boy who loved drawing, a boy who believed in imagination and refused to quit. What can we learn from Walt Disney? Perhaps the most important lesson is that failure is not the end. Walt experienced failure many times. He lost businesses, money, and opportunities. But every failure taught him something, and every setback made him stronger. Another lesson is the power of creativity. Many people see the world as it is, but Walt often imagined what it could become. His willingness to dream created opportunities that nobody else could see. And finally, Walt teaches us the importance of persistence. Success rarely happens quickly. It requires patience, effort, and courage. Today, as we learn English, we are following a similar path. Sometimes learning feels difficult, and sometimes progress feels slow. But every word we learn matters. Every story we hear helps us grow. Every day of practice moves us closer to our goals. Just as Walt Disney built his dreams one step at a time, we can build our future one lesson at a time. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the life of Walt Disney. I hope you enjoyed this story. I hope it helped you improve your English. And I hope it reminded you that dreams can become reality when we work hard and refuse to give up. If you enjoyed this story, please like this video and subscribe to Everstory English. Your support helps us create more stories for your English learning journey. Until next time, my friends, keep learning, keep listening, and keep enjoying the beautiful journey of English.